Greetings, citizens and prospective citizens. My name is FailureToReport, and today we're going to be talking about Star Citizen's latest milestone patch 3.10. Now, I'm going to put this at the start of the video because I'm sure it'll trigger some people if I don't say anything. This video is going to be covering patch 3.10, not the Squadron 42 delays. There's nothing to really say outside of, oh, geez, shocking, Squadron 42 isn't releasing this year either? Additionally, I know a lot of people are waiting for me to rip this patch apart. Brace yourself, because it's not all going to be negative. I try to accurately represent the state of these milestone updates, whether it's everything is falling apart and it's a total shit show, or things are pretty good. So don't act shocked when I say nice things. And on the flip side of that, if you're a big bleeding heart fanboy, get over yourself. There's crappy things about this patch also, and I'm probably going to talk about those too. Right then, let's get started. Patch 3.10 sees the introduction of, well, a lot. There are a ton of gameplay tweaks, additions, and overhauls across the entire game, from life on foot to hurtling through space. So rather than trying to imposter any other content creators and just read you Cloud Imperium's patch notes, because I think you're probably a big boy and you can do that yourself, I'm going to highlight some of the major ones I feel are worth talking about. First and foremost, since this madhouse of a game started out as a space flight game, it would be criminal, in my opinion, to not lead with the elephant in the room. The flight model was changed for the 183rd time. With this month's milestone patch, CIG has tweaked how ships perform in combat as part of their never-ending juggling act to slow combat down and make you roleplay that you're a World War II pilot dogfighting Nazi Messerschmitts in space, versus just, embracing the beauty of space. As a result of this, CIG has dumbed down ship performance in terms of gimbal assist tracking, missile lock timers, and general weapon accuracy when trying to attack above SCM speeds. But wait, there's more! CIG also wants more retarded thrusters across the board in Star Citizen by adding ramp to all the things. What this means is when telling your ship, oh shit, I'm about to fly into the side of Port Olisar because I'm drunk and not really paying attention, your ship will now need to ramp up the amount of thrust you're screaming and praying for in order to evade that giant object. Where previously, when you said, give her all she's got, Scotty, the thrusters would go full tilt the second you gave the input as the pilot. What this means for combat is a more sluggish engagement. So all of those people wanting World War II in space, rejoice. With all these changes, Star Citizen is now dumbed down just a little bit more to be a clone like all the other space games out there. Versus, that unique and fun flight model we had in the early years. Maybe you weren't around for those times. If that's the case, I feel sorry for you, because it seems you'll never know the joy of feeling like Apollo in Battlestar Galactica just seal clubbing the shit out of Cylons. Oh, that's not all, folks. Call now and we'll arcade casual your space game even more for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling. That's right, citizen. With patch 3.10, CIG has also dumbed down gunnery because it wasn't kid-friendly enough for the Fortnite crowd, and, we've got to get there somehow, since auto gimbals, where you just had to point your face in the general direction of the enemy and hold down the pew-pew key, wasn't enough. Anyways, let's discuss. In addition to slowing down combat physically by limiting thruster power on demand, making your ships perform worse above SCM speeds, CIG also put in a ton of effort into making turrets idiot-proof by adding fixed assist, meant to, as CIG puts it, nudge weapons towards the target. Because it's 2020 and a certain person over at CIG still won't admit that trying to make World War II turrets work in space doesn't work. Now, I've beat the turrets in Space Horse to a bloody pink goo over the last 8 years, so I won't bother doing it here in this video, but if for some reason you'd like a full video on why World War II turrets in space is about the stupidest thing anybody has ever thought of, let me know and I'll see if I have enough alcohol in the house to bring myself low enough to make a dedicated video. With that, let's continue on our merry journey. So you might be thinking, that's all there is to talk about flight-related performance, but ho, are you wrong? With patch 3.10, you will undoubtedly notice a massive difference in ship performance when in space versus when in any atmosphere, as ships are now much more drastically affected by both wind and their aerodynamic profile and thruster positioning and type. Now for the record, I'm not against this change as an idea. The problem I have with it is the way it was implemented. Star Citizen is pretty well known for having a lot of ship designs that are essentially flying bricks, and many of them do not have rotating VTOL thrusters, which means their ability to handle in atmosphere is pretty questionable. The other half of ships we have in the flyable lineup are very airplane shaped with wings and sleek aerodynamic profiles. The problem is, none of them have control surfaces, no rudders, elevators, ailerons, or the ability to set trim. What this means is in patch 3.10, many ships now suffer from terrible flight performance in atmosphere, which again, I'm not directly opposed to, but when this issue is brought up, it is most often countered by superfans with,
"Well, CIG is working on control surfaces."
Gotcha. Okay, so you put in a game-changing mechanic, but without the other half of the mechanic that allows pilots to counter said mechanic without constantly fighting to actually have control of their ship. Big brain in the house. Watch out, boys. This issue is further compounded when ships like the Gladius, which are sleek as hell, can barely handle a maneuver in atmosphere, versus a ship like the Freelancer, which is literally a flying sex toy with no VTOL capabilities, flies like a champ. Which further makes it feel like the developers running the flight model are just plotting numbers in a tool put together by their predecessor and hoping it all just kind of falls in place. While those two ships are an offhand example, there are many such cases where ships that should be thriving in atmospheric flight are struggling, while cumbersome bricks handle and respond better, for some unknown reason. Now, I want to be fair to CIG. If you jump into Star Citizen 3.10 right now at the time of this video, for those window lickers who always comment 6 months after a video has been posted with,
"Nuh-uh, that's not true."
the current date is the 7th of August. The flight model you will experience in patch 3.10 live is light years better than what it was when CIG let it loose on Wave 1 PTU. During the first builds of the PTU, the atmospheric flight model was so bad you had literally zero control of your ship. It would pull up or down to the point where you were max input in the opposite direction. It would constantly roll so bad that if you were on mouse and keyboard, you were literally just spamming nonstop your roll keys just to try to feel like you had a little bit of control while simply trying to fly straight and level. It was really bad. However, Cloud Imperium listened to the massive feedback about the problems with how ships were handling in those early builds and mostly fixed the handling problem within 2 days. So, while this new atmospheric flight model does still have problems and inconsistencies, I think it's absolutely a step in the right direction for atmospheric flight, so long as Cloud Imperium continues to improve it and doesn't just leave us stuck with it for half a year or more, as is, while they work on the next random filler feature they pull out of the hat to replace whatever people were looking forward to in 3.11 or 3.12. Is that it? Is that it for flight? Oh, Jesus, it feels like it's been an hour talking about this stuff. And that was just a scratch the surface rundown. But no, that's not it. With Milestone 3.10, you better be ready to remap your keybinds because, baby, they done all kinds of fucked with targeting. With the latest patch, CIG implemented about 20 different new things you can push a button on related to targeting, and it's kind of a goddamn mess. Where previously you could easily be covered by having one binding for cycling friendlies, one for cycling hostiles, and one for cycling sub-targets, there's now bindings for cycling targets in view, locking targets versus just selecting them, pinning targets, and multiple bindings for all those things for hostiles, attackers, friendlies, all targets, and subsystems. Yeah, have fun. Now again, credit where it's due. When CIG first unleashed this monstrosity of a nightmare on backers in the PTU, you could literally only select and lock targets that were in front of you. It was bananas. Imagine the year being 2950, having this super advanced crazy targeting computer and spaceship radar that you could detect targets 360 degrees around your ship, and you see a big scary red dot behind your less than maneuverable ship and going, "Space Siri, lock hostile target," and she's all, "Oh, sorry, you can't visibly see that contact, so I'm not gonna lock it, but good luck, hon." That targeting system made it through over 2 months of Evocati testing and initial Wave 1 PTU testing. Who the hell let that happen? And before you ask why Cloud Imperium or Chris thought this new nightmare clusterfuck of a targeting system was needed, you can bet it all that it was designed to help turret gunners suck less. Because You know, that's what Star Citizen needs. Instead of an alternate timeline where Chris admitted that World War II manned turrets in space was a stupid idea back in 2014 when, literally everybody was telling me as much. Okay, that's it. No more flight crap, I swear. Let's talk about some of the other things here in 3.10. I want to give a big high five, mad respect for the MVP big dick boy of patch 3.10, the player trading app. That's right, citizen. You asked for it. I whined about it. Chris promised it forever ago, and it's finally here in game. With the new mo.trader app on your handy dandy Moby Glass, you can send credits to anyone. Like literally anyone. Friends, foes, somebody who helped you escape certain death after your ship bugs out on a planet, your friend who went mining in the mole with you, the fighter tryhard that kept you safe during your cargo hauls. Look, whoever you want to give credits to, you can now do that effortlessly and without the mind-numbing headache of having to create a beacon, hoping beacons weren't broken, and hoping to God that the person you wanted to pay was the one who picked up your beacon on the first go. God bless you, player trading app. Single greatest addition to Star Citizen's persistent universe since in-game ship rentals and purchases. I cannot emphasize enough how much this feature is quality of life on steroids. I'm so happy I could hug Chris. Speaking of things that make me happy, being the alcoholic, drunk, raging hater I am, let's talk about that goddamn goofball Bartender AI. Now, I know a lot of you Star Citizens are diehard RP and Second Lifers, so rejoice. CIG has finally introduced the reworked bartenders who come tricked out with that new Bartender Subsumption AI. What this means is that bartenders will take orders from you, go off and make whatever drink you want and then bring it back to you. But they also do it for NPCs, basically drinks all around. Now again, it's important to highlight just how trash level garbage this feature was on Wave 1 PTU, and again, CIG massively turned things around with these little happiness peddlers. I will say, however, minus 50 DKP for CIG not adding more liquor drinks than whiskey and soda. I mean, really, CIG? Just whiskey and soda? Also, drunk player effects when? I want to see some staggering and blurred vision, Chris. Let me try to disembark Lorville with 6 glasses clattering around my pilot seat. Oh, speaking of Lorville, the next major change you're going to see in Star Citizen 3.10 is that Area 18 and Lorville have been infused with cancer. And by cancer, I mean they have been giving takeoff and landing splines. What this means is that the restricted area around these two spaceports has gotten even more cancerous to the point that you now need to fly through these little tiny stupid gates when coming into or leaving the spaceport. And God help you if you can't stay within these gates, because the serial killer named Autopilot will take over control and murder you. Because Autopilot is for some reason now over a year old and still works worse than the Chernobyl political committee managed to handle the meltdown. Now, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, this system in 3.10 Live works much better than it did initially on Wave 1 release. However, my praise is probably going to end there. The spline system is a terrible idea. For the last 2 years, players have been begging CIG for more freedom, not more restricted area. When people saw restricted flight zone rework on the roadmap, no one thought, oh, that's going to mean making it so I have to fly through a gate or my computer will take over and kill me. Especially after Cloud Imperium's latest planet, Microtech, featured new Babbage, which allowed players amazing amounts of freedom to fly throughout the cityscape. I all but sucked CIG off praising them for their work on New Babbage, from the artwork to the total freedom Cloud Imperium gave us to fly around the buildings in close, landing on nearly every building, landing between buildings, landing on the frozen lake. I mean, you have insane amounts of freedom after CIG's previous 2 planets that were just boxed in with walls of red insta-death no-fly zones. The landing splines and the additional restrictions are a major step backwards for the overall enjoyment of the PU. While I don't have a problem with the splines being a visual aid, forcing players to fly through them or face death is an absolutely terrible idea. And I say face death because the autopilot is a sadistic murderer. I have no problem giving pilots who needed more visual aids to their specific landing pad or hangar extra tools they could use. But being forced into the splines is a terrible system, not only because of the autopilot, but because of the lanes that these splines give. In Lorville, you can't request a pad until roughly 10 kilometers above the spaceport. The spline is then generated just barely above the spaceport, which means you have to do this absurd circling pattern while wrestling Hurston's gravity to try to make it into your spline in time. Again, this isn't a system I think doesn't have a place, but it could absolutely do with some serious tweaking between, maybe gutting the autopilot takeover completely and making the splines more adaptive to where you are when requesting the landing area. Now then, let's talk about some more quality of life stuff worth discussing in 3.10. Aside from visual improvements brought across all planets and moons, CIG also did an ocean shader rework, giving oceans a more realistic touch. While this is probably a big eye roll to a lot of viewers, it was a nice change to me, as one of the few things I enjoy doing at this point in Star Citizen's life, as we wait year after year after year for more non-combat professions and gameplay loops, is pleasure cruising planet surfaces. And while I might not be the type of player who gets out and roleplays themselves on a hike across Microtech's vast frozen surface, CIG also implemented an incredibly nice feature with this update that allows you to finally clear your visor of snow and rain. Rejoice, because you can see again. For about 5 seconds. While the ability to clear your helmet's visor is a nice feature, its duration is so small you better make that keybind something easily reachable, because you're going to be hitting it a lot if you want to stroll around Microtech and still be able to see 5 feet in front of you during a storm. This milestone update also saw quite a few quality of life updates for a handful of ships. If you're a proud owner of the Gladiator, you saw some weapon size increases, but let's be real, nobody owns that ship anymore, so there's that. The Caterpillar and Buccaneer also got some quality of life changes in terms of weapons, and CIG finally remembered that the Car2Al Scout has been a flyable ship for the last few years, and gave her some weapon size bumps, giving this long since bastardized concept ship just a little bit more life as a puppy clubber. In addition to these quality of life improvements, CIG also reintroduced variable armor values for ships, meaning that those that are supposed to be tankier should now take more of a beating. This change was also accompanied by a signature reduction for ships with stealth armor, at the cost of being more fragile. These two changes should be very interesting to see how they affect the day-to-day life of all those Vanguard and Eclipse murder hobos in the verse. Speaking of ship stuff, let's get grounded for a moment. Patch 3.10 sees the introduction of Star Citizen's very first land vehicle capable of doing something besides hauling people around and shooting at things. That's right, kiddo. Enter the Greycat Remote Ore Collector, or ROC. While I'm not sure how I feel about the name, since it doesn't collect ore remotely any more than a prospector or mole does, we aren't going to dwell on that, and instead let's talk about the merit of this new mining vehicle. First and foremost, the Greycat ROC is designed to mine a new size type of ore between hand minables and the larger deposits that the prospectors and moles feed on. This was personally a bit of a disappointment for me in creating more clutter when scanning for ores on the surface, as well as just seeming like a bit of a waste. Had I been the big boy in charge over at CIG, I would have looked at the ROC as a way of letting mining crews or solo players cruise about a planet, find some nodes, then land your ship and disembark in your ROC to go out collecting and mining with a means of scanning above a foot range and going after hand mineable nodes at a rate faster than running around on foot looking for nodes. Scatter more hand mineable nodes all over the planets and moons and let the little guys go to town. The ROC would especially shine in this role once CIG gets around to adding the ability to put things like storage boxes inside of ships where ROC teams could go out, mine, come back to offload on the mothership before rolling back out to gobble more rocks. Instead, we have a new ship with 0.8 SCU capacity that runs around looking for new nodes at a rate that makes you wonder why you aren't just using a prospector. I'm not saying it's absolutely terrible, but it just feels like there were better ways they could have implemented this new vehicle. The other major concern with the Greycat ROC is another issue it seems they haven't cared to change since the Argo Mole, and that is that this self-sufficient little mining truck meant to drive around the universe collecting ore for whatever purpose is an open cabin. Which means if you don't have the right suit for the environment, you're going to have a bad day. I want to take this new vehicle's introduction as another opportunity to implore CIG. This is a terrible design. It's a terrible design on the Mole, and it's a terrible design on the ROC. It makes absolutely zero sense for these mining vehicles that are supposed to be operating either in space for the Mole or in environments ranging from frigid blizzards of Microtech to the molten moons of Pyro and beyond, and yet the manufacturers, CIG, go, yeah, let's have this be open to the environment and really just cook or freeze and popsicleize the operator. That works, right? I've had a lot of people say, don't just bitch about the bats, it just fixes. So here you go, CIG. You already have the nose mining turret enclosed on the Mole. Copy paste that to the sides and then do the same for the ROC. Alright, the positives. The design team did a great job with this vehicle. I know I've been fluffing the vehicle folks at CIG for the last 3 quarters now it seems, but it's deserved. The articulating arm is some next level Star Citizen vehicle feature. Seriously, we need to take a moment, step back from calling this thing a mining buggy. MoveSpeed and I took the ROC out just to record some mining stuff, and as usual in Star Citizen, everything went wrong, and his Dragonfly also managed to get stuck up inside the Carrack vehicle bay. Hey, that articulating mining arm, it has collision and can be used to bump and steer objects. Yeah, that also means if you roll over on your ROC to the right side, you can use the mining arm as a tip assist. Game fucking saved. The front loading and unloading is also convenient for parking these babies in tight spots, whether that means jamming a small army of them into the back of your trash heap Cutlass Black, or a whole fleet of ROCs stacked 6 high inside a Starfarer. You do you, Spaceman. I think there's a lot of potential to make gameplay for the ROC, but in its current form and the state of the PU, it's incredibly frustrating to use because you first need to get a ship, then you need to go down to a vehicle terminal to get the ROC, and then stow it in said ship, then you need to go fly around looking for nodes that the ROC can mine, versus, just grabbing a mole or a prospector and going straight into mining. Then you also need to take into account the amount of effort all of that takes while waiting for that looming 30k you can't predict. That means you have to respawn in your hab, claim your ship that transports the ROC, then fly out to a vehicle pad and claim the ROC, then be able to go out mining again. If you're wondering why this video didn't have more ROC mining footage, that was my experience testing the ROC, which was only made worse by not being able to claim it on the same planet it was lost on, which meant having to fly from Microtech to Calliope, claiming, then flying back to Microtech. It was frustrating, and the whole time I was left slowly reaching for my bottle of whiskey and wishing we had just been using a mole instead. But if you thought that was cancerous, let me tell you, buckle up, sweetums, because it's time to talk about CIG's big brain move of nerfing the ever-living fuck out of the mission payout economy. First off, across the board, missions received reductions in payouts, but added to that, they gutted the old delivery system of carrying boxes to a destination and replaced them with 3 boxes instead. What this means is in 3.9 and every patch prior, you would take a delivery mission, go pick up a box, and then deliver it to a destination. In patch 3.10, you pick up a mission that has you either picking up 3 boxes at one location and delivering them to 3 different drop-offs, or picking up 3 boxes at different locations and then dropping them all off at one destination. Summary is that you're now in one form or another going to 3 different destinations, but the real kicker is that you're doing 3 times the work for a fraction of the pay a single box mission rewarded in 3.9 and prior patches. Now, I might have spent the early years up until patch 3.5 being a ganking, griefing combat tryhard, but these days, I've made my transition to lazy Care Bear FedEx delivery driver and pleasure cruising no secret on this channel. I'm just totally worn out on combat after doing it for so many years in Star Citizen back when it was literally the only thing we could do. And until CIG finally adds more non-combat gameplay loops, hopefully by 2030, I've taken up doing delivery missions and just flying around for fun as my way of enjoying Star Citizen when I get the space game itch after watching The Expanse for the 9 billionth time. So, when I say this new payout nerf and delivery mission change has me tilted, know that I am absolutely pissed at CIG over it. Not only are you doing way more work for way less money, it's now 3 points of potential failure just to do one shitty paying box mission. What I mean by that is that box missions have been notoriously buggy for years. You'd go to pick one up and the terminal wouldn't give you a box. The box wouldn't be in the outpost. The box would fall through your ship and into the planet. The destination terminal would refuse to accept the box. The delivery destination would be underneath an outpost. I mean, there's literally a dozen different ways that a box mission can bug out. And now, instead of having just one box bugging out and not working, you have to worry about 3 of them. Adding on to all of that fun and enjoyment is the amount of time it takes to jump around the system and the fact that server 30k errors are what they are, and the possibility to waste an hour of your life on just one shitty paying mission is very, very real. CIG, put the old boxes back in or bump these goddamn payouts way the hell up. The nerfing of the rewards makes absolutely no sense. You weren't getting rich doing box missions. All the people rolling around in Scrooge McDuck vault levels of credits got that money from doing the exponential growth of hauling cargo in their Caterpillar or Freelancer Max, not doing FedEx runs. Now then, let's talk about the thing I'm sure most of you are waiting for me to discuss. Is Milestone 3.10 enjoyable, and is it playable? Has Star Citizen gotten better? Has the Jesus patch finally arrived? The answer is no. Well, mostly no. Some people find having their dangling bits between their legs, vice grip between two boards, and whipped as enjoyable, so maybe you'll find 3.10 enjoyable? But in terms of playability and the overall state of the game being better, the short answer is not at this time. Servers are painfully still frequent to 30k at their own discretion, and on top of the already frequent enough occurrence for servers to die on their own, a solid bro who helped me out during PTU testing also found a player-induced method to force a 30k the other night, and as far as I'm aware, pushed that info to CIG, which they then seem to think, we'll just push the build to live anyways. The point here is that if you get your rocks off mining or cargo hauling, do it with the usual assumed risk that the server is going to commit Sudoku whenever it feels like it, and you might lose everything. This has been, for the last year and a half, my single biggest gripe with Star Citizen. Server 30k errors are a death sentence for this game being referred to as a game in my book. Name me any other game where you jump on to play for a few hours, and at any random point in the game you're going to be bounced and lose everything you were doing. But dial up that random disconnect to 100 where it's totally normal thing for the servers to just straight die over and over and over and over all the time. Just for years. That's completely normal. Even Ark Survival Evolved, back when it was a little tiny indie game that had buckets of bugs, had an autosave so that if the server died, you lost maybe 10 minutes tops. Where I'm driving this is that knowing anytime you get on, you could lose everything you were doing just because the server decides to die, and not by any fault of your own play, or because of an enemy player, or even an NPC, it is incredibly frustrating and discouraging when it comes to finding the motivation to get on and play, since Star Citizen has become more and more riddled with 30k errors than bugs. While the teams over at CIG are doing great work in making the game's eye candy, adding in quality of life overhauls, improvements, or additions, and doing their best to make the game that is there enjoyable, the frequency that Star Citizen servers crash rides up there with lack of gameplay loops in terms of greatest detriments to the overall state of the project. Although I really feel like we should have had way more core gameplay loops by now, at this point I've lowered my expectations to the point that I would shake Chris's hand in person at the next SitCon if he can just get the goddamn servers running properly and reliably. Now, I know basically everybody expects 30Ks and garbage servers at this point in Star Citizen, so I'm not basing the overall state of Star Citizen on just that issue. Looking at the known issues list in Star Citizen has become a guaranteed route to depression all on its own, as the last 3 milestone updates, it has just grown and grown each quarter. This is to say nothing of the hundreds of other bugs the game has, but just the known major issues CIG acknowledges in their patch notes. Here on the FTR Hater channel, we don't normally harp on bugs and crap unless it's something major that breaks normal gameplay in a patch. But this quarter, I'm choosing to talk about it during the Milestone patch video because it's starting to highlight a major issue in Star Citizen. Quarter after quarter, CIG will put out a new patch with a few minor tweaks, some quality of life changes, and maybe a new ship or some new location, or some new shiny, hey, we didn't scrub the roadmap of literally everything major we told you was coming this patch, like, the prison system or hand mining in caves, but yet every Milestone patch, these little additions that should have no interaction with things like the 600i elevator, or the 600i cargo ramp, or rest stops being able to repair and refuel, or the bar on Microtech suddenly losing its dance track and being replaced with ear-deafening wind shears in the locations that are supposed to be playing music. Are you catching on here? It's becoming more and more worrisome that the foundational code of Star Citizen is such a rat's nest that anytime they tweak anything or add some minor change, it breaks 20 completely unrelated systems and features. So when I say that Milestone Patch 310 isn't the second coming of Jesus for Star Citizen, it's with these kind of things in mind. Server performance is still utterly unreliable. You could jump into 3.10 and play on a server for 4 hours, or you could get server 30Ks every 30 minutes back to back to back. Then there's every patch that takes several handfuls of features or items CIG spent the last 5 patches fixing and then breaks them all over again. Fingers down, fanboy. I got it.
It's early days.
We are all aware, my dude. My point in talking about these issues isn't to shame your dream world where you can escape reality until you turn back to Stardust, bud. It's to highlight to anyone who hasn't been pulled into this mess the actual state of this project. While other people might sugarcoat the ever-living shit out of everything while telling onlookers there's a totally great game here. I still maintain that I want this project to succeed, and it does feel like they're taking teeny tiny adorable baby steps towards a release game someday, years in the future. But the fact is, Star Citizen is not in a state that anybody should be trying to pull anybody in. But hey, gotta make them referral points, right? Did you know if you enlist today using my awesome referral code, you can join me in this amazing universe and get an extra 5,000 credits to start your space life with? Sign up now! I haven't pulled that bit in a year or so, sorry. One of these days I'm gonna get a Javelin referral reward, just you wait. Look guys, Star Citizen is ambitious. Like my 10-year-old walking outside and saying, I'm gonna fly to the moon by myself levels of ambitious. While it's not literally impossible, the odds are astronomically against both of them. That said, I think there is a great game under all the bullshit, shady marketing, horrid servers, and never-ending drama. But we are years away from it. It's not going to magically change anytime soon, and I have zero intention of lying to people until those things do change. I want to be able to recommend this game. I sit around every time while waiting between the next Milestone patch going, God, I sure hope this is the one where I can say next to nothing bad about the game's state and tell people I comfortably would recommend pledging. But that day is not today, and this patch is not that patch. Now, here's the big disclaimer, citizen. It is entirely possible that 3.10 could get a sub-patch in the future that gives the servers some stability that we haven't seen since 3.7.2. And it could be entirely worth jumping into Star Citizen if you haven't played in a few quarters or maybe even years if that happens. It's entirely possible CIG hears the cries of backers clamoring for more freedom and reworks or tunes the landing splines in restricted areas. A lot of my gripes with 3.10 can be improved this patch should CIG decide to put the resources towards this patch. But with 3.10 being incredibly late and cutting into 3.11's development timetable already, I'm not gonna bet on it. So, if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting to tag in, I'd put my money on needing to wait for 3.11 or 3.12 at the very soonest. Most likely though, we won't start to see a stable and playable game until sometime late next year. As always, citizen, my name is FailureToReport. I hope you found this summary of Milestone Patch 3.10 and the state of Star Citizen informative or thought-provoking. If you're interested in playing Star Citizen, I am not here to stop you. However, I would strongly encourage you to wait until October or November when there will almost certainly be another free fly event where you can jump into the pilot seat and test the universe for yourself without spending your hard-earned money up front. Free fly events are usually a week long, which is more than enough time to see and do all of the things available in the verse, and then make an informed decision if those few things are what you would like to do for the next few years. Until then, stay safe, citizen, and I'll see you in the verse. Oh, shit. I forgot, since the last 30 days have been shout out to FDR, it seems like, I should probably do some shout out of my own. Keep the goodwill train going. Thanks to a top tier bro for tossing me a link to Cobra TV doing a dope name drop. I'll hustle you one back, fam. First, it was adorable how you were like,
somebody who fails to report her. He doesn't even get how funny his name is. Her.
Are you the same age as your audience? Is this the part where I go, duh, Cobra TV, was he like starting a channel for snakes? Bro, if you want to start acting like you're 12 and making fun of fucking channel names, you should probably come correct and not have the gaming equivalent of a basic white bitch channel name. Second, I'll go ahead and give you the same game I throw every one of the cult boy shills who used to wander in here. If you feel like I'm not reporting Star Citizen correctly, please feel free to point out where I'm incorrect. You won't though, because I've been here since damn near day one, where you were off on your PlayStation and churning out bullshit for No Man's Sky. No wonder you came over to this game and can't stop talking about how amazing everything is. And starting a conspiracy? Look, Pookie, I didn't even have to start that. You left your arcade space Minecraft game and jumped over here in full tilt shill mode, the same time CIG's other totally not kickback stooge Rex Zyloh left the scene. That narrative was circling long before your trash started showing up in my YouTube Star Citizen tag. If I have any advice for you going forward until you stagnate out and move on like your predecessor, they like you yelling more and make sure you're chugging Red Bulls left and right. Also, talk about how Star Citizen is the most amazing first-person shooter you've ever played, as 40 people twitch, desync, and jank out in the background. You've got some really big boots to fill. To anybody who isn't a moron and happens to still be watching this, if you want some actual quality content in a positive light for Star Citizen, stick to the people who aren't working on an Academy Award performance. Morphologist for ship-related content, whether it be reviews, designs, etc., and Astropub for missions, economy, lore, and gameplay guides. Don't support a fucking moron.